Alrighty, I'm going to be talking about the conservation efforts of the kakapo of New Zealand. So, a little bit about the kakapo. They are large, nocturnal, flightless, forest-dwelling, lek-breeding parrots. Their appearance, they have a pale owl-like face, which gives them the name of the owl parrot, and they are moss green mottled coloring with yellow and black above that, and they have a gray bill with gray legs and feet. And then their age, they tend to have a lifespan between 40 and 80 years, and they're quite large. I included an image to the right of a woman holding a kakapo just to show how big they are. So, a little bit about their behavior. Again, they are nocturnal and solitary, so they tend to occupy the same home range for many years, and they forage on the ground because, again, they are flightless. But they do climb high up into trees and tend to leap from tree to tree and kind of like flap their wings. But at best, they are known to manage a controlled plummet because, again, they can't fly, but they are kind of large enough to where their wings are big. But again, that's more just for support and balance, but yeah, they're not going to go anywhere far. For their diet, so they are foragers, but they do eat entirely vegetarian, so this includes leaves, buds, flowers, ferns, bark, roots, bulbs, fruits, and seeds. But that does vary seasonally just depending on what's available. And then this image is just of a kakapo eating an apple. So a little bit about their threats and species information. So they are critically endangered. They were quite common on the island before human arrival, but predation from introduced mammals has really led to their decline. Predators include cats and stoats, and also Pacific rats. But the females incubate and raise their chicks alone, so that really increases their vulnerabilities to both the eggs and the chicks once they are small. Also, their defenses don't really help out their situation on that end. Their defense really is to freeze and rely on cryptic coloration to hide. So this is really ineffective to mammalian predators that hunt by scent. So as long as they can smell them, they can find them. It's not really about hiding and blending in. But the image here to the right is an example that I found of them kind of trying to do that. So other threats that they face is aspergillosis, and they were known to have an aspergillosis outbreak on Codfish Island, which is a fungal infection. So aspergillosis spores are abundant in the environment naturally, and they're typically inhaled by both humans and mammals. But the spores only usually cause a disease if the individual has a reduced immunity and or if there is an increased concentration of those spores in the environment, which seems to be the case on Codfish Island. A little bit more about their distribution. They were moved to predator-free islands in the past, which has really helped increase their numbers. And this map just shows, I'm not going to try to pronounce all of those to the left, but this map on the right shows all of the different types of areas that they're kind of distributed amongst. And all the way down at the bottom, you can see that Codfish Island that we were just talking about, where they're kind of having the issue with aspergillosis outbreaks. But yeah, this is just kind of showing the distribution. They're kind of all over the place. All right, looking more closely at the population. In the 1930s, the kakapo disappeared from northern islands altogether, but they have persisted in the wetter southern islands. So from this graph to the right, we can see the low point. It was during the 1990s when they experienced about 50 birds total. But as of lately, well, from June 2020, there was a total of 210 known birds, and those were on forested islands that had previously appeared to have a wide range of vegetation types, which is important because, as we said, they are vegetarians. So a little bit more on the importance of the kakapo. So they are an important bird to New Zealand's native Maori people. So they have cultural importance and they are important for their food and traditional clothing. They wear their feathers, and that's the image to the right there you can see. But they're also known as New Zealand's best loved bird. So they have a lot of symbolism in that way as well. So, looking at the conservation, they were transferred to Resolution Islands, but this failed back in the 1890s when the stoats actually swam to those Resolution Islands, so that didn't work out too well. But as of recently, transfers in like the 1980s to the 90s, um, they have been completely predator free islands, and that has halted their decline increasingly. Um, Another thing that has really helped is the removal of the Kiori or the Pacific rat and more intensive management. So, this intensive management can include, like we talked about, moving birds between islands, protecting nests from rats, supplementary feeding of adults, and that's that image to the right there. They kind of set up those little stages and food stations for them, um, as well as closely monitoring eggs and chicks, like we said, that are really vulnerable to the predators because they do it independently. They're solitary, they don't have other mates to help protect the eggs or the chicks. And then also rescuing hand raising failing chicks, just to really try to keep those numbers up in the population. Something else that they're doing is gene sequencing, and that's their Department of Conservation is really focusing in on that. Um, so the sequencing of genomes of all of the living kakapos to assist conservation is a really big new thing that they're kind of doing. And the overarching aim of this project is to improve genetic management, and it really just addresses issues that are kind of coming in the way of recovery, such as infertility and disease. And the image to the right is of the parrot getting its blood drawn. And then lastly here, just look at the current population size and how they're doing. As you can see from the image to the right, they're doing better, better than they were in the 1980s. So they dipped down for a little while, but we're going back up. So there was a total known adult population of 205 living individuals as of recently that were named and tagged and confined to 4 small islands off the coast of New Zealand, and those islands have been cleared of predators. So they've been doing quite well for themselves, and that can really be attributed to the intensive management that was mentioned in the presentation. And then these are my references.